Hi everyone, this is Lauren coming at you from the Break Zone with another deck tech video. This one going over the Rice Water deck that was piloted by Matthew Rice in order to go for Day 2 top 16 finish at the Toronto Crystal Cup. So in case you kind of got a quick look at the deck, it is an Ice Water deck that is very tempo based and set up to do really well against a lot of the decks that you expect in the meta, such as Mono Ice, Earth Wind, as well as Mono Water Monsters. So let's go over some of the cards that got Matthew to go to Day 2. First off, we got Sid Reigns, who combos really well with the rest of this deck, being able to deal damage in combination with, let's say, Celis, Bismarck, Glaciella Bolas, Cuchulainn, Tomberries, any such cards, but also being able to recur himself with the Water Scholar. So you play Sid Reigns, use Water Scholar, and to return Sid Reigns back to your hand, play it again. You'll be able to force your opponent to discard 2 cards and lose a forward. Next up, we've got Locke, who's another part of that Final Fantasy VI package that we're also familiar with. Combos really well with, let's say, Setzer and Gestalt Empire Sid. Being able to enter the field and force your opponent to discard cards is one of the key parts of your tempo-based deck. Next up, we've got Strago, who's an EX burst on top of being one of the few ways that people interact with monsters, but he does it really well by returning your monster back to your opponent's hand. So if your opponent is playing, let's say, even tricolor monsters where they have like a Kobold Droid Yin, being able to return it to your opponent's hand is going to set them back 1 turn, as while they could turn it into a forward, it's not a very effective blocker at that point. But normally they would want to attack with it, but if you turn a monster into a forward, it cannot attack the turn it comes into play. And a Kobold Droid Yin at 3000 power is not much of a blocker. Next up, we've got the Emperor, who was showcased also well by Matthew Komodo over at the Boston Crystal Cup, being able to punish your opponent in case they play Mono Water Monsters, and being able to draw so many cards from their EX burst. If they have any kind of forwards that kind of stand in your way, you're going to punish them for drawing those cards. Next up, we've got Celis, part of that Final Fantasy VI package that we talked about. Being able to combo well with Sid Reigns if she damages your opponent, being able to deal 4000 damage to a dual forward is going to be able to help out, as well as her special being able to prevent your opponent from trying to come back into the game by playing a key summon. Next up, we've got Genesis. That's been a key part of Ice deck since Opus 3. So much tempo with this card, and being able to come in and also apply pressure by forcing your opponent to discard cards is so good. Next up, we've got Porum, who's not only an EX burst, but plays really well into kind of digging into your deck, being so tempo-based, card advantage, as well as that ability being so good. If you're playing against, let's say, Mono Ice, where they might try to use a Devout for different things, having a Porum in play is going to prevent them from doing so, because if they use their Devout to sack it, put it in the break zone to look for a forward of cost 4 or less, you'll be able to cancel that effect, but they will still lose their backup in the. And Porum is also very good against monsters as well, as most monsters that turn into forwards can only use that ability once per turn. So if they were to try to turn into a forward, go ahead, use your Porum to cancel that effect, and they won't be able to do so until the next turn. Next, we've got Capricious Reaper, who we haven't seen in a while, but it's been a pretty good card for a long time. But just it actually comes out and shines really well against, let's say, Earth Wind. So if they're trying to use Cactuar in combination with Dataluma to get rid of your forwards, Capricious Reaper is going to punish them for it, because every time he's targeted, he'll force your opponent to discard a card. And as you're tempo based and you want to go for that early to mid game, if they actually go and discard all their cards in their hand, it's actually helping your board state forward. Next, we've got Vayne, who's really good against some of those 5 and 6 CP forwards that people tend to use in the meta right now. So we're talking about Orphan, Cloud of Darkness, Gao, and if you wait for them to play any of those forwards, go ahead and put your Vayne down afterwards, and is going to be able to dull and prevent them from activating again. Next up, we've got Cloud of Darkness. Only one copy of Cloud, because once you have a board state kind of set, being able to play a Cloud and reduce the power of a forward enough to put into the break zone might let you just let your other forwards swing in for the game. Next, we've got Setzer, part of that Final Fantasy VI package that we talked about. Setzer in combination with Gestalian Empire Sid and Locke is going to help you push forward so many games. Next, we've got Bismarck. Love that card. As I mentioned earlier, one of the few cards that I've seen in the meta that interact really well with monsters. And Bismarck is going to, just like Strago, set them back one turn by returning a monster to their hand, but also being able to reduce the power of a forward by half rounded down is so good, as some of your forwards are not that big, but Bismarck is such a good combat trick. And in combination with that 2 CP Yuna backup, is actually only going to cost you 1 water CP to play. Next up, we've got Glacial Bolas. Love this card, whether you're ahead or behind. If your opponent has 7,000 power forwards coming at you, you'll be able to punish them so hard by forcing them to discard a card as well as lose that forward. And if you're into the mid to late game, you'll also be able to just, let's say, dull freeze one forward that's really problematic, or freeze one that's already been dulled and dull another one and go in for a couple points of damage. Next, we've got Kuchulain, who is very good with that 2 CP Yuna backup. Being able to reduce the power of enemy forwards by 1,000 per dull character can be pretty good, as well as being able to draw a card. So it kind of replaces itself. And the fact that you're playing for that early to mid game, your opponent has to really try to play a lot of cards, whether they try to attack you, if they're being very aggressive, or playing backups. If they play a forward, you'll be able to kind of trade up, you could say, if not just straight beat them out with some of your smaller forwards as well. Such a combat trick as Kuchulain can be very good if you're playing very aggressively. Next up, we've got Sid, World of Final Fantasy, who only one copy, but sometimes you just need one more copy of Tomberries on the field in order to pull off all kinds of combat tricks and just go in for the kill. Next, we've got Jilnabat. This one, the Opus 2, not the Opus 1 starter with the EX Burst, but it helps you against certain matchups such as Lightning, Wind, or Mono Lightning, where they use a Heroic Lulu, for example, as well as any kind of light Fusoya tricks. Next, we've got Scholar, one copy. So you have so many forwards that have entered the field ability that Scholar can come in pretty handy, whether you want to return a forward to their hand with, let's say, replaying a Strago, or replaying Sid Reigns, or even like just, I mean, there's just so many tricks that it would take me a good 5-10 minutes to go over every single one of them. But Scholar is pretty good in this deck, on top of being a 2 CP backup. Next, we've got the other Scholar, this one being the Ice one from Opus 5. Scholar is going to be able to interact with Sid Reigns as well as Locke, but most likely Locke. So if you're trying to go for that extra point of damage, trying to get Locke through for that unblockable Mirage Dive special, you're going to be able to do that by fetching another one of the copies of Locke from your break zone, put it back in your hand, and after that, using the special on Locke to force your opponent to discard a card, take a point of damage, or maybe go for that 7 point of damage. Next up, we've got 2 CP Yuna, who is going to help you, well, not only by being a 2 CP backup, but also with a 1 CP Bismarck, 3 CP Kuchulain. That's so huge. Next, we've got Flintlock. So it's got a Minwu-like effect that you have to dull to use. But one of the issues that I've found with Minwu at times is that Minwu doesn't push your game state forward. It tends to slow you down a bit when you play it out, and it's not great in every matchup. Now, Flintlock, on the other hand, would be a 2 CP backup, so if you play it first turn, that's not so bad, or even like, you know, second or third turn, whatever it takes to get it done. And sometimes just being able to prevent one damaging effect might just be enough. So let's say somebody tries to do the Alcid combo on you, being able to prevent the Alcid from doing the initial point of damage. The initial 6,000 damage is going to prevent, let's say, Onion Knife from doing anything, or Radia from forcing you to dull and break your forward. As well as forcing your opponent to, let's say, if they use Daluma in combination with Cactuar, it's going to force them to do it at least one more time to get it through. So if they were trying to do 2 Cactuar pings on that Luma to deal 8,000 damage to a forward. By using Flintlock, you're going to force them to do it one more time, and they might not be able to do that. Sorry about that. Next up, we've got the Dukelark. So if you're facing mono ice, sometimes it comes down to the point of who gets the Dukelark first to put more pressure. So you don't want to fall behind, and if you're ahead, that's actually good for you as well. So 3 copies of Dukelark is definitely the right number. Next up, we've got Edward, 2 copies, so you could use that special. So it pushes your game plan forward, which is usually to be very tempo-based, but by forcing your opponent to discard a card when Edward comes into play, enters the field. But also being able to play kind of like that Celeste special, being able to cancel out a summon might just keep you in the game and let you finish it. Next up, we've got Gestalian Empire Sid, or Banana Sid, whatever you want to call him. Goes hand in hand with Setzer and Log for that Final Fantasy VI package. Next up, we've got Tonberry, being able to not only be EX, but fetch you that Tonberries, gives you all those combat tricks, just in case you weren't able to get into your Dukelark. Sometimes the Tonberries might be enough for you to get a couple points of damage. Maybe a lock, a Genesis goes through so that you can force your opponent to discard and keep going with that tempo. And obviously, Tonberries comes in with the Tonberry. As I mentioned earlier, it's so good, as well as, let's say, if your opponent has a Cobra Droid Yin or something like that, being able to crack the Tonberries during your opponent's turn to give it minus 4,000 might be enough to just take it out. So thank you very much for tuning in and checking out this deck. Thank you, Matthew, and congratulations. You did great. You were just amazing. It was so much fun commentating your match on stream with Matthew Okimoto. Great guy. We actually got to grab dinner and hang out with him. Had a great time. If you get the chance to meet him, he's a really cool guy to hang out with. So thank you very much for tuning in. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to put them down below. And well, it's the end of the video, so I'm going to go over some of the things like all the prizes that we still haven't given out because nobody has contacted us, even though I put it up on the video last week. So we have new winners now. All right, so for the 400 subs, the Lightning Sleeves are still available. These will go out to Sound Wolf. So go ahead and either send an email out to the Break Zone email or put a comment down below so that we can contact you, get your info, and send these out to you. So thanks to our sponsor, MagicTechGames.com. We also have a new winner for our 500 subs who gets the choice between this Lightning Plushie or Iconic Masters Horizon Canopy. And the winner of that that contest is Secret S. So go ahead and contact us down below. Leave a comment or something like that, or send us an email. Or for our final turn Friday, $5 Magic Tech Games credit. Well, we have a new winner. People might be familiar with him on Facebook groups. DeMarcus Williams. Please contact us one way or another so you can get that $5 credit. And we're not done with giveaways, obviously. We've got another one coming up at 600. So the winner is going to get to choose between these Cactuar sleeves or the Smox Amber for Dominaria, thanks to MagicTechGames.com, our sponsor. So go ahead and subscribe if you haven't done so. And as a reminder to all our current subscribers, if you are subscribed, you will be entered in any future giveaways. So don't feel like, oh, hey, I need to wait it out until something cool comes up. No, you're part of every single giveaway. So, all right. Thank you very much for tuning in, and we'll catch you next time.